Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate, make it right. I myself am strange and unusual.
Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea. It is time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. We are so happy to have you here.
Yay, welcome back for another, this is episode 2 of season 3.
Yes, can you believe that? I'm excited.
I know, I'm super excited to be back. I feels like a whole new energy has been brought into our little podcasting circle.
Yes, and I love this new venture we're going on sticking with the Pacific Northwest. It's really making me have a
direction, maybe? A sense of direction? Yeah.
A direction and just a refreshing change of pace, I suppose, a new format.
It's a fun new focus for both of us to get that zest and that spark. I'm feeling like it's just a fun topic for both of us. So yay. I hope our listeners are enjoying it as well. And we are always open to suggestions. I feel like by the time this airs, we'll still be down to take suggestions. So if you have a place or a thing, a phenomenon that you want us to look into.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I have a dog and she refuses to leave my room, but then she barks all the time. And now my doll's going off because of it.
Abigail, the haunted doll, speaks. She's back with us in the podcast. I love it. Yes. So I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen each other. I've had some fun, and I basically wrapped up the end of my vacation. I know you wrapped up the end of your vacation.
Yes.
I did a lot of like thrifting and shopping, and what else? What do I want to start with? I feel like there's so many fun things. So one of the things that happens when you date a metalhead is that you get into VHS collecting.
Nice.
I know my friends can relate to that out there. It's just a fun, cheap way to get movies. And so like, I really love old movies. Like I just discovered for the first time It Happened One Night with Clark Gable. And it is like the cutest romance movie ever. And apparently it's like where George Lucas got the inspiration for some of like the Han and Leia romance, how they kind of like banter and kind of bicker. But I feel like they're more toxic than this old movie was. But like when I found that out, I could totally see the resemblance from like Leia's dress and her hairstyle and like even some of the things that they were talking about. It was like a straight up ripoff. Like they're riding a train together and she falls into his lap and he just has to catch her and hold on to her, just like they did in the Millennium Falcon.
Wait, what was the movie?
It's called It Happened One Night.
Oh.
It's really solid. It's like, you know that whole hitchhiker thing where girls like in movies they'll lift up their leg and then the car stops?
Yes.
This is where that like originated from. Like the girl is like, I can get us a car, and she pulls up her dress hem and like the guy's just like immediately punches the brakes and pulls over and picks him up. And it is the cutest old classic movie. And so I highly recommend it. And I've been discovering all these old new movies. And the great thing about VHS is like you can find them. Some places are selling them like 6 VHS for $1.
Right.
And I've just been going crazy. I got really into Doris Day movies now and just like all these old cute things that are harder to find.
I love old movies.
Me too. I know that's one thing we can relate on. Like, you're one of the few people who I'll talk to and you're just like, yeah, I was watching these old movies from the 60s and now I'm on to the 70s. And I'm like, fuck yeah.
It's just so much fun. A lot of TNA, but I don't mind that.
And like, I don't know what it is about it. It's like it's like a different time. So it's like I can excuse the sexism there. Or like if I'm watching a new movie, I'll be like, eye roll. Of course you had to save the girl. But like in the old movies, I'm like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. It's just a different time period. So we can learn to appreciate where we've been and where we're going.
Yeah. And then one of the other things I did for my birthday was I went to the beach, as you know. And before I went, I decided to like map out, okay, where are the thrift stores? Are there any metaphysical stores? And like this one store came up that I don't know, Wendy, if we've talked about this store, if you've been there or heard of it. Have you ever heard of the Crystal Wizard?
Remind me where it's at.
This is in Lincoln City, just off the main road.
Yeah.
And It's so cool. Like, if you're just driving down the main tourist road, you won't find it. But if you Google it, you can, like, you have to turn up on this road, and it's, like, between these apartments and the woods. And it's this purple building that has, like, a koi pond, a fairy garden outside, and, like I said, painted all purple. It has this mural of this classic wizard, Merlin, Gandalf-looking guy,
Yes.
Odin guy, and he's holding a crystal.
Right.
And I'm so glad you've been there. Okay, so as soon as I open the door, I find this big fat orange cat licking his belly in a chair. And, like, right behind him were these giant hunks of amethyst. Like, you could tell it was one piece, like a geode almost, that was cracked in half. And it went, like, above my, I want to say above my hip, unless I'm, like, disremembering it. But it was really, really tall. And
That's
one
awesome.
half of this amethyst was, like, $8,000, I want to say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it was just, like, when I stood in between them and held my arms out, I could feel all this energy just radiating out of the crystals.
You're just, like, bathing in it. You're like, yes, come to me.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't afford you, but I can definitely soak in some free energy right now. So I'm like, just, like, vacuuming it up, and it felt so good.
Yeah.
And then I just got, like, the best vibes from the crystal shop ever. Like, was one shop I went into beforehand that had, like, this, like, crystals, and it just said metaphysical outside, and I had, like, got really weird vibes, and I was like, I don't like this place. I feel like the crystals are overpriced, and these dudes are giving me sketchy vibes. And then as soon as you go to the crystals wizard, I was like, okay, these women are the shit. You can tell that they do yoga here, they meditate here. Like, this place has good energy. Yeah, and, like, every little corner of the store was super pretty and had crystals everywhere. So I got, like, a opal little heart stone. I got some, I think it's called calcite, that yellow stone, unless I'm mixing it up. And then I got one of those gray shiny ones that look like the T-1000 when he, like, liquefies. I forgot what that's called.
Yeah, but that sort of metal color.
Yes, yeah. So I just stuck to some stones I could afford, pocket size.
Yeah, of course.
Stones. But I really want to go there with you one day, and I had a lot of fun just, like, thrifting in Lincoln City. They actually have, like, old video game stores and old movie stores where you can just go find old junk for really cheap.
Yeah, so, I am overdue for a beach trip, and Lincoln City is definitely one of my favorite towns to go in because it's so close to us. I think maybe that's why I gravitated towards it. But
yeah, it's an easy drive.
Yeah, it's an easy drive. I feel like it's really kind of my vibe, I suppose.
For sure.
Yeah.
I remember I was with my boyfriend Cameron, and he was just like, we can't go to the beach and not go to the beach. And I was like, watch me, we so can. Like, by the time we're done shopping, we're gonna be exhausted and hungry. And that's sure enough what happened. Like, I spent a whole, like, 48 hours at the beach and, like, the city, but didn't go to the beach, and I was totally fine with that.
I've done that too, but I still will, like, I'll get food and then just drive up to one of the areas so I can just watch the ocean. Yeah.
I got this really nice room. I splurged for my birthday because, like, last year and the year before I had negative experiences, and I was like, I'm going to spoil myself and have a good birthday. And so I got this room that overlooked the ocean, and it had, like, a jacuzzi tub on the balcony. And so, like, I was just having such a good time because from either view you could just watch the ocean. And so I brought the movie, one of our favorite movies, Wendy, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, and I was watching it, and it felt so right because it's, like, about her being this awesome woman having, like, a paranormal house that's haunted on the beach. So it's like I'm watching these black and white waves. I look out the window, there's waves, and I was like, this is luxury.
Yes.
So that is my comfort place. Movies, nostalgia, ocean. I just had a great time.
That's awesome.
Yay for good vibes.
You know, self-care is really important, especially now, like, with everything that's been going on in the world. And you know, it's really important that you take care of yourself, and I'm so glad that you saw that you needed to do something to make up for the time that was shitty. You know what I mean?
I needed to make some good memories.
Yeah, you're like, on to bigger and better things.
Hell yeah. I've also been binge watching the Nightmare on Elm Street series, like, for the first time since I saw one as a kid, and then I saw, like, parts of 2 on TV as a kid that scarred me. So this is the first time I'm, like, watching them as an adult, and I've made it to 4.
Okay.
It seems like Freddy is always winning. Like, no one can really defeat Freddy, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I remember seeing the last, because there's 6 of them. I saw the last.
So many, yeah, like the New Nightmare.
I saw the last like 3 in theaters, but the first ones I was too young to see in the theater.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. There's one that you use 3D glasses. So we have this set of Blu-rays that has the 3D glasses in there. It's fucking hilarious.
It is so funny, like, yeah, how you can tell when older movies had 3D just because stuff's coming out at you. Like, I recently decided to watch Jaws 3 because I'd never seen it. And then, like, I think it's, like, one of the last scenes is just, like, Jaws coming straight to the TV, like, super slow. Yeah. And I'm like, this is so silly.
That was such a big deal when it first came out. Like, I remember that with the Happy Meal, you would get the glasses so that you could watch on TV. Like, they were going to have this national event that it was going to be on TV. And so everybody would be watching pretty much at one time.
And then Avatar was like the next leap of 3D, and then everyone tried to copy that for a while. And I remember, like, I just hated it because I'd go to the movies, I put the glasses on, I feel like it made looking at the movie harder, and the 3D wasn't really worth it. It was just like another $4 to just have a shittier experience.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. When in reality, like, I don't know if you went to Disney if anybody went to Disney during this time period, but like when that stuff was going on, they had that sort of experience that you could go where Michael Jackson was
Captain EO.
Yes, that's I knew you would know. That's the one.
Yes, there's something about that. Like I think, Michael Jackson, obviously there's a lot of issues going on with him.
Right.
But that is one of my memories as a kid of nostalgia, of just like going to see that, because it was there's cool puppets. I think Angelica Houston plays like a space kind of sorceress type vibes, and there's a battle, and it's just like good cheese.
And then they had it set up so that like water would rush under your feet, or you get the splash of or the air that would come up.
I definitely remember that. I remember that happening with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids as well. Do you remember there was like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 3D? And I remember that they would. Remember that. I remember they'd blow air like when mice were running across the screen, and it felt like mice were running past your feet.
Yeah. Really funny.
Good times.
Good times. Oh my gosh, jinx. Or synchronicity? Not jinx. Synchronicity. There we go. We're on the same wave.
Yeah. So I don't know if we could keep riffing all day, or should we get into our main topic?
Let's get into our main topic. So as part of our Northwest series, I am covering, because it's my week. So I don't know if you guys caught this last week, but we're going back and forth and just each taking a topic, and we're sticking to one event so that we can get a more, I don't know, clear experience on these on things that happen to these people. So I'm talking about something that happened in Washington. So I'll start here. In June 1947, around the same time that the infamous Roswell, New Mexico case near Corona, New Mexico was occurring, 2 other seemingly similar events were happening right in the Pacific Northwest, literally just days apart from each other. And one of them allegedly occurred on June 21st, 1947. And that one was called the Maury Island incident. It's the one that I was kind of talking about where the dog died. Okay. I think I was talking about last week.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think that one was hoaxed, and it really depends on what you read. But because this one was believed to be a hoax by the FBI, I'm really not going to be talking about that one. I'm talking about something else that caught my eye called the Kenneth Arnold sighting. And anyone who kind of knows about UFOs most likely has heard about this sighting because it was one of the first ones out there. So I kind of feel like I had my work cut out for me for this one because so many people have talked about it. And I've heard a lot of different storytellings of it. I've seen a bunch of stuff on TV. I've read a bunch of different books and articles on this one. I really hope I can do it justice. My goal initially when I started researching even deeper into this was just to get all the facts and sort of a timeline. So let's just see where this takes us.
Yay.
Before I go into the event itself, I thought it would be fun, like for us to... like maybe for me to tell you what was going on in the world at that time. So we're talking about June 1947. And so at that time in the United States, the president was U.S. Harry Truman. The average car cost $1,500. An average house cost about $6,600.
Nice.
Gas was only 15 cents a gallon, but minimum wage was only 43 cents an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Can you believe that?
Dude, like, sorry to go back to my Doris Day moments, but I
No,
was
it's
watching
cool.
one of her movies, Pajama Game, and she was like rioting or something for,
I've seen that one.
yeah, and they wanted like
Yeah.
half a penny more. And I was
Yeah.
like, how do you get half a penny?
Right? Right?
Damn.
You're like, here's the sixpence or whatever it was
Yeah.
called. So also the event that I'm going to talk about happened on Tuesday, June 24th, 1947. And I found out that this was the year of the pig and the astrological sign of Cancer. And if you were born on this day, the numbers indicate your soulmate would have been born on January 9th, 1921.
Nice.
And by the way, if you were born February 12th, 1986, supposedly you are my soulmate.
If you're out there.
If you're out there.
It's too late. I'm married. Yeah.
I know, it is too late. I am married, but things happen. Also, 39 years later, on June 24th, Beyonce would be born.
Nice.
Okay, so now to my event after my little fun snippets. So this sighting happened over the Cascade Mountains in western Washington state. And on that day, 32-year-old Kenneth Arnold was an owner of a fire control company in Boise, Idaho. He was also a civilian pilot that would sometimes do odd jobs to make a living. And on this particular day, he was out searching for a lost Marine C-46 transport. Don't know what that is. But if he found it, he was supposed to get a $5,000 reward, which today is $60,000.
No, okay.
Yeah, so there was a lot of, he really wanted to find this wreckage. So on that day around 2 p.m., Mr. Arnold was in his plane and he left Chehalis, Washington. And Chehalis, for those of you who don't know, is on I-5, which is the main highway that stretches all the way from Canada all the way down to California, like down into Baja, California. And it's about, Chehalis is about an hour and a half south of Seattle for some sort of context. He said when he was up there, the skies were fairly clear and it was sunny. And he says he was flying around the area for about an hour looking for this wreckage. And at some point, like about an hour after the hour had gone by, he saw a bright flash coming from the area of Mount Baker, which is northeast of Chehalis, kind of up near the Canadian border. Now, I don't know anything about flying a plane, so I don't know how he could see that far, but good on him. He saw a bright flash of light again. And after this light, it made him think that maybe he was seeing something else, like maybe the sun was flashing onto something. So what he saw then, after his brain registered that it was flashing onto something, he saw 9 fast-moving shiny objects. They came down really fast from the north and headed over towards Mount Rainier and Mount Adams, which was not that far from where he was at. And he says the craft appeared to be in a straight line, like almost forming a chain, and that it only took all of the craft 1 minute and 42 seconds to reach the area of Mount Adams. And the craft went from mountain to mountain during that time and stayed near the height of the mountaintops, kind of swerving through the peaks of the mountains. Well, I don't know math very well. I don't know if you know math very well. But
I do not know her.
I think as a pilot, you kind of have to. And Kenneth did the math and believed that these craft were going about 1,600 miles per hour, which shocked him because the fastest craft we had at the time went about 600 miles per hour. And he said that the movements of these objects was like a stone skipping across the water. So they were kind of bouncy. And he also noted that these objects had no tails, which was unheard of at that time in the civilian piloting world. I did find some kind of experimental craft that they were doing around that time period that could have potentially not had any tails. But one of the craft out of the 9 was crescent shaped. It was different than the other ones, and it had this kind of dome in the center of the craft. But it was like So it was crescent shaped with a dome. And he said that he couldn't see inside the dome because he wasn't that close. I think he was he was probably 23 miles away from them as they were coming towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of all of them were super shiny and flat. And he watched them for about 2 to 3 minutes before they disappeared around that Mount Adams, Mount Baker area. And this event has sort of changed his life. I mean, as these things do, because think of our human brains about how we're like, man, what the heck did I just see?
Yeah, anytime you see unexplained phenomenon, there's probably a lot of fear. You're not sure what you're witnessing, and then your worldviews could just come crashing down.
Right. So I know that after the incident happened, like he was doing the radio down saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. To which I think that at that time there were reporters who would listen in on that kind of chatter, and they came and interviewed him. There were several different people that interviewed, of which, like, each person that interviewed him, his story changed just slightly, very, very slightly. I don't know if that was because, like, you know how human memory, sometimes we add things in as we're trying to recall an event, or maybe we forget certain things because we're so flustered. And this was such a strange thing that happened. So I can't say that he's lying or anything like that, but it should be noted that his recall changed just slightly. One of the reporters that he talked to was a Mr. William C. Beckett, who was a journalist in Pendleton, Oregon, which, for those of you who don't know, Pendleton is kind of in Eastern Oregon. And Mr. Beckett, he was the first person to take this story down that actually named the craft that Mr. Arnold was talking about. And he called the flat objects flying saucers. And that was where we get flying saucers from this Mr. Beckett.
Nice. The origin of the term.
Yes. But this event really changed Kenneth so much that he went on to study these type of craft and these type of incidents, because he wanted to find people who'd also had, situations like this, who'd seen stuff like this. And so he interviewed many people throughout the years. He even had a second experience, which I thought was interesting, but I couldn't find too much on that secondary experience. But what I did find was that it was very similar to his first one. There were people that definitely tried to debunk his experience. There was a scientist actually who came out, and his name was Martin Kottmeyer, and he said that, he could have seen clouds, a mirage, a balloon, but I think it was these American white pelicans, which is this white tailless bird, because did I say that before? Like all these craft were tailless. So yeah. This Kottmeyer, he said that this was most likely a bird. And I was like, well, unless birds can teleport, I don't think they can fly 1,600 miles per hour.
Yeah. And like you can a flight pattern would be very straight, you would think, not bouncy like a rock.
Right.
Over water.
But for Mr. Kottmeyer's sake, like, I did look up how fast birds can fly, and the fastest one was this sort of falcon that flies like 250 miles per hour, which kind of blew my mind.
You go, falcon.
But, yeah, I was like, holy shoot. But I'm just a normal person who likes odd shit, so it was kind of fun to look up.
Yeah.
Anyways, Mr. Arnold, he went on, like I said, to do a lot of research, which made him also do more and more interviews. Like, he didn't make money off of this, mind you, but he did these interviews just for the sake of research, I suppose. And there were these 2 magazines out during the time that I came across. One was called Look, and the other was called, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Shoot. can't find the name of it. I should have wrote that down. Anyways, there were different UFO magazines, which I thought was very interesting. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah. But these were like in the 60s, published in the 60s.
Okay, so much later.
Yeah. So much later, these magazines were published, and he would still be doing interviews, not just on his experience, but other people's experiences.
Gotcha. I guess because he's associated with like the first one.
Right.
So people are always going to refer back to him.
Right. So I came across two where I found excerpts, and I wanted to read them to you.
Awesome.
So the first one, this came out of a magazine called Look, and he says, the impression I have held after observing these strange objects a second time was that they were something alive rather than machines, a living organism of some type that apparently has the ability to change its density, similar to fish that are found in our oceans without losing their apparent identity. And then...
That is super weird. So he thinks that these flight objects are not a plane, but an animal of some sort?
Yeah, so some sort of organism. So that kind of explains, you know how a lot of times like we get people who are like, oh, look at this object, it keeps shape shifting and turning into different things. Like we get those videos where it looks like an orb and then it changes, it looks like it's changing shape. Mm-hmm. That's what his description reminds me of.
That is, I can't even wrap my hand around it. That is super weird.
Right? He also has another article. Apparently there was this guy named Ray Palmer who had a magazine called Flying Saucers. In November of 1962, Mr. Palmer wrote this, which is a direct quote from Kenneth Arnold. And it says, after some 14 years of extensive research, it is my conclusion that the so-called unidentified flying objects that have been seen in our atmosphere are not spaceships from another planet at all, but are groups and masses of living organisms that are as much a part of our atmosphere and space as the life we find in the depths of our oceans. The only major difference in the space and atmospheric organisms are that they have the natural ability to change their densities at will.
Like,
so
what is
once
he
again,
describing?
Right? So it's hard to say. I'm like, what kind of stuff did he come across? I mean,
you know what I'm thinking? What about like an air elemental? Like, because I'm trying to think, okay, ocean creatures, let's, if he's going to compare them to weird, deep ocean creatures, are there weird sky creatures? And then I thought, oh, you got air elementals and all that kind of magical stuff.
Like they can appear and disappear at will.
Yeah, something like that. Like that's where they live. They're just in this like other kind of plane almost, but they're also a part of our plane, like intersecting, intertwining, interweaving.
And maybe it's not that they can appear and disappear on their own. Maybe it's that we can only see them at certain times. Like because our eyes and our brains can only comprehend certain things in our environment. Mm-hmm. Like ghosts, some people can see them, some people can't, some people can feel them, some people can't. It's not to say that they don't exist. It's just to say that we just can only see and feel what we can see and feel.
This is not what I was expecting. I was expecting this to be saucer, cut and dry.
Right.
But now I have no idea.
And the fact that this came around, I mean, literally this was happening at the same time as Roswell. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, there were events across the United States that were kind of happening during that time without people even really talking to each other.
Okay. So, and different people are all going to see things differently.
Correct.
So,
so this was just his experience.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't make sense of it.
Well, I can see like, my take on this whole story is not to judge his experience. I can't say his experience is fake when I have had all of these experiences on my own. And I know how it feels to have my sanity experience judged. And my goal is just to kind of tell you guys this story or this story of Kenneth's experience I didn't want to dig in and try to find the truth, even though my ego did. Like, I was researching what kind of craft were around that time period, but I was like, does that even matter? Because the reality of it is that was Kenneth Arnold's experience, not mine. And I think he saw something. And what he saw, I wasn't there, so I can't say. But I think he saw something strange that his brain couldn't really identify. And that's why I think he had a true UFO experience.
Unidentified flying object. Yeah,
right.
For sure. And I don't know, like you said, we're not pilots, so I'm like, how hard is it to like fly and concentrate and witness a strange phenomenon? And
yeah, I have no clue. I don't know if they had autopilot then. Like, I go on autopilot in my life all the time, but it's a total different situation.
Right. Yeah, so who knows really what he could have been experiencing.
Right.
And there were like 2 or 3 different experiences, like within.
I think he had 2, but there were other people. Supposedly, the Maury Island incident, they saw some of the same exact craft, but that one happened several days before.
Okay.
And like I said, the FBI said that was a hoax. I don't know because I didn't research it. I mean, sure, it's easy to say something is hoaxed if you have no evidence.
Yeah, because it's like, this is just eyewitnesses, so...
Right. And there's no way that we can even talk to those people about the Maury Island incident anymore, because the guys who had the experience shortly afterwards, I don't know if this is a coincidence or not. I don't believe in coincidence. It's probably a synchronicity. But as they were driving, or they were not from Washington, and they were driving back to California, and both of them died in a car accident.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I just can't right now because I'm still stuck on the whole organic
matter.
Yeah, I'm just like, what is he talking about? So you were thinking maybe birds.
Well, that's what a scientist said.
Okay.
I think that he saw something that really can't be explained. Like, I think maybe, I mean, I definitely don't think it's birds, because birds can't fly 1,600 miles per hour.
Right.
If it were a tangible craft, that is a possibility. Although at the time period, did I mention that the only thing that we had could go 600 miles an hour?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was military craft. That was very experimental at the time. So, I mean, there were other things that were being tested in the 40s and 50s that, I mean, they're all listed on the internet. It was kind of mind-blowing how many craft that they came out with during that time period, between the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s, that was very strange craft.
Right.
And sure, that could have been military craft that was being tested, that maybe they had some sort of cloaking ability, or maybe they had, I mean, I could hypothesize all day long.
Which I do love to do. Like, I'm thinking,
yeah.
if it's, let's go alien, the fun route, and maybe they have this technology that is a mix of technology and some sort of organic life. Like, maybe that is the pinnacle of it all. They can, it's birthed, who knows, some sort of machine. I'm
all over here. They're Transformers?
Yeah.
More than meets the eye.
Exactly.
They're rip-off GoBots? Oh my God.
Yeah, and that's why he was confused, because he's like, it's got a personality and it's winking at me, but it's also flying. Like,
right. I don't know.
Silver Surfer-ish, like, doesn't he do stuff like that maybe? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, he can turn into something else. I did think it was interesting that there were 2 different craft, which we've heard stories about that before. Like, there was a larger kind of crescent-shaped craft with the dome, and then all the rest were flat. So, I mean, we've heard and seen that kind of stuff in reports before.
Yeah, it makes me think like, oh, that's the mothership, and they can
or the leader.
Oh, the leader.
That's not even the mothership, because it wasn't that much bigger than the other ships.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we probably haven't even seen it all.
He's all, fucking follow me. Sorry, I keep dropping F-bombs. I can't help myself.
It's just a happy day.
It
That's
is.
what it means. So I wonder if there is a correlation between all that activity that was going around at the same time, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I love that it's on the I-5 corridor, like right off the I-5. You know, that's a big deal for us West Coasters, I think.
Right? Because that's a lot of witnesses, potentially. Like, if you're trying to avoid being seen, you probably wouldn't have a flight path where a bunch of humans are going up and down all day.
Right. And from what I understand, or from what I read, I should say, is that Kenneth Arnold, like, he interviewed people who had seen his experience, because that's what he was trying to get. He wanted to catch all these people's different story to boost his story, or his experience, not his story. It's not really a story. He wanted to get other people's experiences to kind of correlate what really fucking happened to him.
Make sense of it all, and probably remind himself he's not alone, he's not crazy.
Right.
And try to piece it together. I could definitely get that, because even now I feel like I'm grasping to understand, and so that's probably was his mission.
Right. And he was just an everyday dude who owned a business, and he flew all the time, and he was just trying to make a living and survive and support his family.
And did he ever come across any of this stuff like crashed, like in the Roswell?
No.
So he literally
because I don't think these crashed. Yeah. But who's to say, like, if these are, let's hypothesize that these are all the same thing, because it all happened around the same time. What if they went from Oregon towards the East Coast and down south where Corona is in New Mexico, and that's where they ended up crashing? Because in all of these events, the one thing that I found that was very similar was the way the craft looked and the way the crafts flew.
Okay.
So maybe they ended up, after flying all over the United States and doing what they needed to do, they crashed in New Mexico because their lightning storm was happening down there. I mean, it could all be one event that happened over a period of time.
Right. And maybe it's like, who knows how many different ships there were.
Right. This is my long grasp. Like, I'm reaching for stuff here. I don't know what really happened, but could be a hypothesis of what happened.
It definitely sparked a whole, I think, generation to be inspired and awed by UFO.
For sure.
Like late 40s going into the early 50s and 60s. Like, this was a big thing for newspapers.
Right. And I mean, this is the first kind of modern account, I think, was what I was reading. This was the first modern, but we have had accounts of UFOs throughout history, like as far back as we've been writing and drawing. And I mean, we've been talking about UFOs our whole existence.
Right. That's true. Like, if you go back to the whole ancient aliens and hieroglyphs and how you can see the depictions of the saucers. Right. So there's something to be said about saucers. For sure. We don't really know what they are. Right.
Is it us from the future? That's what my son, I was talking to him about this, and he was like, well, you know what they say, it could be really just us from the future.
Yeah. I feel like that was one of your big things too, like time. It could be a time traveling.
Exactly. Time doesn't exist the way we think, so maybe we conquer it. Who knows? But it's a very odd story, a very odd experience, and we can just add this to all the other experiences that are out there.
Yeah. I'm wondering myself who could be piloting them, or apparently are they piloting themselves? Right.
I've had that thought before, like, are the little ones just really drones of some sort? There's nobody in them whatsoever. Were even the larger ones still drones? Who knows? I mean, think of all the different craft that we've had throughout the years, and even the craft that we have now. Some of them are manned and some are unmanned, and they have been that way for a very long time.
Yeah. It makes me think of your tattoo, though, where like the little guy in the dome that was that's a hieroglyph, or was that a painting?
It was in a painting. So you guys, there's this old painting from like the 1500s and you see it on Ancient Aliens, where it's like in the background of some famous painting, there's this tiny little dude in a ship. I've got him tattooed on my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's all pretty fascinating. And you're like, what the heck was he doing? Go ahead.
I was just saying, I really don't know what Arnold saw that day.
No, he saw something. Anyways, it's still a fascinating story. I can't wait to see what you come up with next time that we record. And
yes, I will be putting some feelers out there. I guess I'm going to try to switch it up. I'm thinking either ghost or cryptid, because we have done 2 like UFO sightings back to back. So I'm like, okay, I got to choose something else.
It's exciting. Like, I didn't mean to do another UFO story, but literally I turned to this one in the books and was like, okay, this is it.
I know, and like, I don't know what it is about UFOs, but it both gets us like super excited and hyped because there's so many incidences that are just, I don't know, they're just fascinating.
This is so exciting. We've got such a good season coming for you guys. And then don't forget, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. Make sure you check us out on Patreon. So as we're recording this, we're actually going to do a Patreon video for the first time. I think we're going to attempt to do
We have no
this.
idea what we're doing, but we're doing it.
Yeah, we're going to do it. So lots of good things coming now. People who are already on our Patreon, you guys, this is old news to you. So we're happy to have anybody come over and see us on that kind of fun Patreon side of ourselves where we just really let go and we're totally off the cuff. And things get crazy over there sometimes.
Yes. All right. Well, like you said, you guys know where to find us. We'll put the links all down below. And follow us on YouTube. We've got all of our, I think everything up there right now is up to date.
Yes. Even on our website, I've got all of our episodes up to date.
Awesome.
So anything that goes missing on your feed, always check that website that we have or YouTube because they're up there. So may you guys find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and joy in each other. Blessings to all.